acceptable. We have to do more for our schools, we have to do more for our teachers, and we have to create an environment where more and more people want to become teachers, want to become counselors, want to become support staff, so that our kids, which Deb mentioned has the highest return of our investment, are in an even better position to be successful and want to be a part of our great state, want to continue to live here and work here and start families here. We have to invest in our schools, and we can always do a better job, but I assure you that under my leadership, that's going to be my number one priority, and make sure that we keep things moving in the right direction.
Thank you. The 2016 candidate forum is co-sponsored by the Special Education Advisory Committee, SEAC. The SEAC group members crafted a question to ask the legislative candidates. Of course, refers to special education. From your experience, what do students receiving special education services add to our community? And what have you done to advocate for them up to this point? We'll start with Mr. Anderson.
Well, it's incredibly important. We've seen a growth in this area over the years, but I've got a nephew who has autism and went through the Robbinsdale School District. You see the type of services that are provided, and it's exceptional. We've got great, tremendous staff and teachers in this area in our Senate district. My mother-in-law just retired after over 25 years as a DT para, and I look at this as what was the ending? It was how do they contribute?
Yeah, what have you done to advocate for them?
On advocating, right? Again, this is personal. This is a family situation where you see the contribution and the lifestyle that is encouraging and in the workforce and performing beautifully. And so I will continue to be an advocate for this.
Ms. Calvert.
Well, my mother was a special education teacher growing up. My daughter is an inclusion specialist and has been since she was 15. She's now 24. And so special education is something very personal to me as well. And what do children receiving special ed services contribute to the community? Special ed makes every child that receives it more self-sufficient. Every dollar that we spend on children receiving special education funds, just like children that are at risk for failing, become more self-sufficient and are able to better take care of themselves, receive fewer services as they age, saving taxpayer dollars, and contribute to the economy in the workforce if they're able, and do all the things that people love to do. My son has a friend that was on the cross-country team with him that just ran his second marathon and works 2 jobs. So it's pretty incredible. And what would I do? I think that we need to go to bat, and I have been on the LAC going to bat for special education funding since 2003. We have to I would be happy to communicate with people that I feel comfortable communicating with in the federal government, having worked for Senator Klobuchar, to encourage them to contribute their 40% share of special education funding. And I think we do need to increase funding at the state level as well. I know that the LAC is advocating reducing by half the 45% burden of special education funding that the Hopkins School District faces, and I think we do need to start meeting our obligation at a more significant level.
Thank you.
So, I grew up in the Hopkins school system, and whether it was kindergarten or my senior year of high school, classes had students of all shapes, sizes, and abilities, and it made for a much richer environment and reflected the real world. Special education plays a critical role, not just in our public schools, but in our legislature and our society in general. I know it's almost 2 times more expensive to educate a special education student than it is a non-special educated student. So again, we just have to provide stable funds. It's not enough that the federal government falls short, but we have to, as a legislature, reduce the burden that is placed on local school districts to do their job, because when the federal government falls short, ultimately the state doesn't do what it has to do, and the burden gets placed on Hopkins Public Schools or others to kind of pick up the pieces, and as a result, everybody struggles. We need to fully fund education, fully fund special education, adjusted for inflation, and keep an ongoing dialogue, because as you've heard from almost everyone, the formula for funding education is incredibly difficult to grasp, and you guys are the experts. So our job as elected officials is to work with you, keep close contacts with the principals, the superintendents, the school board members, the teachers, and figure out what should we be doing better and what should we change. And I've done that in the past 2 years. I'll continue doing that, and this won't be the last time, but this is the most important issue to me, is making sure our public schools are funded in a manner that everyone has a chance to be successful. So you can count on my continued leadership.
Thank you. Ms. Meyer.
Thank you. First of all, children with special needs are special children, and we all need to do what we can to help those children achieve the most that they can out of their life. I think a lot of people on this panel here have mentioned some things that I agree with. And I have to say too that thank goodness for special education teachers and the people that work with them, their patience, their skill, their knowledge. And I think we need to continue to look for teachers that will go into that field, because we need them. I think when a child with special needs and through special education learns how to do something, they can be very productive. I had a dear friend who, I have one friend, she's a teacher in special ed in St. Paul district, and I have another friend who has a daughter that has some needs, and her daughter is just so proud that she's working in the laundry and she's making money, and she feels like she's contributing. And her parents feel just wonderful that her daughter came along and got to that point that she could be somewhat self-sufficient. So we can't ignore these children, and they're all special, and we have to make sure we have money to take care of them.
Thank you. Has everyone turned in the question that we got one more over there? Could I get a comfort here? So I'll start with the questions from the audience, and we'll start with Ms. Calvert on this one. Minnesota is known for its incredibly large achievement gap. How do you plan on closing the gap?
So, one of the best, well, as I said before, the best way to close the achievement gap is to invest in early childhood and family education. Make sure that we're scooping children up and their families, even as early as prenatal, making sure that families that mothers are receiving prenatal care so that the babies are born with healthy brain development, that children are receiving nutrition that they need for healthy physical and brain development through their toddler years. And we have to fund early childhood and family education, to me, in a way that targets dollars to families and children that are most at risk for falling behind. Because once a child falls behind, it's very hard for them to catch up, and they need to be ready for school, ready to learn when they come with the social skills and the academic skills they need to succeed starting in kindergarten. It's just the only way. We know that educating early childhood education, they believe, there have been studies that believe that it raises the GDP by 0.5 percentage point, because they become such productive citizens, earning higher wages and so forth, because they're more successful academically. So to me, the best way to close the achievement gap is targeted dollars scholarships for children most at risk of failing.
Well, I agree with Deb. The Hopkins Public Schools has a phenomenal Ready for K program that should be replicated and serve as a model throughout Minnesota in how to properly invest and educate at-risk youth. You know, just this morning I was able to attend a pre-K, private pre-K facility in the district, and I won't name names, but they were saying that on average they believe that it costs approximately $18,000 a year for families to send their child to preschool in our area, and that is way too high. So we have to focus on reaching those who can't afford it. I mean, I don't see any argument against one that suggests getting to at-risk 3 and 4-year-olds, getting them ready for kindergarten, acclimating them with other students, making sure they know how to cooperate, hold a pencil, pay attention, be respectful, and work as a group together is going to pay dividends and ultimately save us so much money down the road that there really are no better investments we can make. So closing the opportunity and achievement gap starts at the earliest level, and you have my word that I am fully committed to doing whatever it takes to ensure that all 3 and 4-year-olds have an opportunity to be educated, will be on a path to be ready and fully on board with learning at our great public schools that we have right here in Minnesota. Thank you.
Closing the achievement gap, that's a very big task, but it has to be tackled. And I think when we talk about some of the situations that cause it, sometimes it is the lack of the family as a unit. Sometimes children are fearful of their environment. Sometimes they're sick, they're hungry, they don't have a place to go to, they may be living out of a car. So there's lots of things that can lead to this. But I think the early childhood is great, but we can't write off a whole generation that we've got in the system right now. We have to do something to help the people that are in the 3rd grade now, to make them be able to go to the 6th grade, the 8th grade, and continue on and want to graduate from school and want to do better with their lives. And maybe we need to find things for these kids that they're interested in. Maybe there's a better way to educate these kids, to close that gap. Find something that they care about. Maybe they want to do work from home. Maybe they want to do something that's in line with a trade. There's something more that we can do. We can't just write off a generation right now. We can start, yes, and help them, but we've got to handle this problem now. And I think we can come up with solutions. We need to reform the way we think about things. And maybe the kids that are having a hard time, maybe they're the ones that we put in some sort of charter schools and work harder with them.
Well, Minnesota schools generally perform outstanding on the surface, and Senate District 44 is the gold standard when it comes to that. But when you do peel back and look at the in-depth, we've got a serious problem, and this has been going on for decades. This is not something that's just raised its head just recently. So it's something that we do have to focus a lot of attention. But for me, I agree with Deb on this. We have to focus scholarship dollars, in my mind, potentially a public-private opportunity where you're looking at low-income and disadvantaged youth that can get the opportunity and can get the high-quality programs that they need to succeed going into and being prepared for kindergarten. If you get into the kindergarten readiness, and then you get into being able to read, proficient reading by the end of third grade, literacy is key here. Math proficiency by 8th grade, and college and career readiness by the time they finish high school. This is the solution. It's not easy. This is something that we're going to have to put a lot of effort into, but it starts with focusing on those that have the greatest need.
All right. Here's another question from the audience. And this one doesn't necessarily involve education. In case you're going through.
Very timely.
I have a little bit left.
Some of you have already touched on this, but what is your professional background, and how will this help you as a legislator? We'll start with Mr.
I am a lawyer by profession. I practice real estate law at a firm in our community. I don't go to trial, I do transactional work, so I help small businesses and entrepreneurs and developers either start projects, get their ideas off the ground and into reality, or I help people buy and sell buildings, help them with any and all things real estate, and how I believe that it prepares me to deal with legislative issues is that I understand how the law is applied and enforced in private practice, and as a legislator the last 2 years I understand how the law is created and have done a lot in the educational world to create laws that I believe will benefit Minnesotans for generations to come, like the First in the Nation student loan debt tax credit that I created and was passed by both the House and the Senate this past biennium. Everyone here knows that the cost of higher education have skyrocketed out of control, and I researched what other states had been doing about it. I wasn't satisfied, so I studied really hard and worked with some people much smarter than me to create a program that would help all students and families in Minnesota be able to afford to invest in themselves and continue their education, and hopefully one day they'll grow up and realize they are smart enough to know not to be in the legislature, because this is it's a tough line of work, but I'm honored to do it, and I believe my experience as a lawyer and I suppose as a politician these past 2 years have taught me enough about the law to continue to create, enforce, and apply it in a way that will best benefit our community.
I am in the industry that the world revolves around, which is basically the insurance industry. You can't do much without insurance today. And I've been in that industry working on individual accounts, corporate accounts, small business accounts, and I have worked for